popularly known as Koza Biodun Fatoyinbo, is still the subject of public protest following an allegation of rape leveled against him by Busola Dakolo, the wife of Nigerian musician Timi Dakolo. Now, according to Busola's account, this incident happened many years ago when she was just a teenager. With the word rape being thrown about yet again in this manner, it becomes expedient to get perspectives to this story, legal, psychological, health, and all of that we'll be doing on the show today, Rufai.
It's pretty much very imperative to have the human angle perspective to it, to understand the technicalities of what the law says about rape, to understand the psychology of what is going around, because this has a ripple effect. In the past days, we've seen this story take the front burner, but let's not forget the people involved. What's going to be their psychological state? What's going to be their mental state? How are they going to be able to take this?
Is it possible to remember a story after many years? By the count, it's about almost 2 decades, if not more. Is it possible that someone, a victim of rape, can keep all that hurt and story?
I mean, that's another perspective to it. I mean, some people have said you might probably have, you know, not detailed remembrance, maybe half remembrance, but some people say they remember clearly. And this goes to the case of Bill Cosby. When those accounts were given, this also goes to the case of the coach, the American female gymnastics coach that had a serial case where, you know, it was said that he raped, he was charged in court. There was false allegations, but it was charged in court. And the victims remembered vividly despite the time span. So there are many parts to the story. I mean, it's something constantly evolving. There's also been a call by many people in the public space to say, okay, you know what? Rather than all this protest, why not we, you know, take this case to court? Let's try it out in court. Let's see evidence. Let's see.
And get redress of some sort for the victims and those involved.
And get redress. And also, if it's proven in court, there's a big if. You know, because we cannot make fallacies of hasty generalizations because we've not gone to the end of the matter. If it's proven in court, then we can go one step further and say, okay, what punishment will make it out? What does the law say about this? You know?
And one thing is certain, when you listen to the stories of rape victims, it does leave all manner of scars, the physical and the psychological. While the physical may heal, the psychological is one that may never go away. And when you look at all of that, some professionals will tell you you're building up a damaged society because these people live with these scars. I know they are withdrawn from society. They feel hurt because most times the people who are the perpetrators are people they know, those who are close to them. And I'm just curious to find out how and why this happens. Why is it the one you trust or the one you've entrusted your word or your child to that will commit such an act? In the wake of Busola Dakolo's story, we've seen so many other stories come up to light, and it's heartbreaking.
I mean, it just lays credence to the fact that the one who you're most vulnerable with has access to you. And once the person have access to you, they can go one step further and do some things that are untoward to you. And when you see the case pervasively everywhere in the world, it is that, you know, predatory mindset. Let's take, for instance, Oprah Winfrey, that her cousin did, you know, rape her. And Oprah Winfrey will always say how painful it was to be able to live with the experience.
It's usually the case of someone around, someone in the close circle.
Because, like I said before, it is somebody you're close to, it is somebody that has seen certain levels of your vulnerability, and not corroborating her story, but, you know, just taking a very weighted view about her story. She said she was at some points very vulnerable, and that was somebody very close to her, that was somebody she saw in high esteem, and he took advantage of the vulnerability, allegedly, like she said.
Allegedly.
We have to point that
well,
out.
there have been so many reactions to this, and Iran's News has been covering this. It's unprecedented, the protests we have seen to this particular case. And one of those stories, one of those protests happened yesterday in Abuja at the church's branch. Let's have a look at that story.
By the head pastor of the Commonwealth of Zion Assembly, Koza. The Church 2 movement kept its promise of staging a protest to condemn the recent rape case by Busola Dakolo, a former member of the Koza Church levied against Pastor Biodun Fatoyinbo. This is not the first time allegations of rape has been levied against Pastor Fatoyinbo by members of his church. In 2013, S.A. Walter confessed to have had an illicit affair with the pastor in London during one of his visits. Busola, a mother, photographer, and wife of popular Nigerian musician Timi Dakolo, revealed in an interview earlier in the week how Pastor Fatoyibo raped her.
When I was just about to react, he just covered my mouth. And when he covered my mouth, it was just like, Busola, listen to me and you'll be fine. Just do what I want you to do. I didn't struggle. I just left him, and he brought out his, and I was wearing a nice gown. I was wearing pants, pulled down my pants, and that was how he found difficulty to enter, but he just kept, I was like grunting, I would cry, I was just doing a whole lot of mixed feelings and all that, and he eventually penetrated, even blood dropped on the floor.
The protesters, in a silent procession, marched to the Commonwealth of Zion Assembly Church in Abuja while the service was ongoing. On approaching the church premises, a human barricade of COSA members linking arms alongside heavy security halted protesters from going any further. Protesters demanded that Pastor Fatoyibo step down as head pastor of the church, while thorough investigation into the allegation is carried out.
We are doing this under the umbrella of Church 2 movement. We are simply doing this for one purpose. Busola Dakolo came out 2 days ago to lay allegations on the pastor of Commonwealth of Zion Assembly, COSA, that she was raped when she was a minor. She was just 17. So under the Nigerian law, she is not yet a consenting adult.
This time around, we've had enough. He's not the only pastor in Abuja. He's also not the only pastor in Nigeria. So why is it always about him? We came here today to protest. I came out personally to protest against his ongoing rape, sexual allegations, and everything. And I'm doing this because of my unborn children, even my daughters, because even men most times are being abused in churches. So this has to stop.
The church cannot be exempted from citizens holding the church accountable. Because if we hold leaders in various crimes accountable, then the church itself must be accountable. And the church must purge itself of such elements that bring shame and disrepute to Christianity and the body of Christ.
Also at the scene of the protest, a group of men engaged in a counter-protest against members of the Church 2 movement. The COSA head of security, speaking on behalf of the church, denies the allegations.
We have heard the allegations, we have seen it, and also my pastor had spoken by the communique he released. So, as he has said, I will just stand on what my pastor had said, what the church had replied, through the senior pastor himself. So I think we should, what they are doing, it's fine for them to do this, because like I said to you when they came initially, we don't want a situation where this will cause a fear.
The Church 2 movement have promised to continue the peaceful protest until justice is done for Busola Dakolo and other victims of sexual and rape abuses. Leko Agbeleshe, Arise News.
Well, there you have it. That was just one protest in Abuja. There was another in Lagos. But now a lawyer and human rights activist, Pelumi Olajengbesi, joins us on the show to take a look at the legal perspective to this. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's just begin by asking you, when is someone said to have been raped under the Nigerian law?
Well, you see, rape is a grievous offense and is an attack on humanity. When you look at all of our laws in all of the jurisdiction, the penal code, and of course the criminal code, rape is committed when a man has unlawful carnal knowledge of another person, of a woman. And you see, if you look at the new law in Abuja now, activated in 2015, rape has now even gone beyond a man affair alone. It has also affected both men and women. When a particular person have carnal knowledge of another person without the person's consent, or it is forcefully done, then rape has been established in our law. However, it is not just about the definition of rape. There are certain elements that make up the offense called rape, because rape is a word, but it's also is a creation of law. There are certain elements that the law has put in place to ensure that the word rape is established. Number one thing is that for there to be rape, there must be what? Carnal knowledge of the other party. When you say carnal knowledge of the other party, it means that there must be sexual, intercourse between the two parties. Now, when there is sexual intercourse, you must establish that there is penetration of the female reproduction system. And if that has been established, you have to establish that in court. And the court has also established a procedure through which that can be established. That can only be established if there is a witness who can give a visible account of what transpired in the scene of the rape, or when there is medical evidence to support the fact that the rape has actually been committed. If you look at the way our law is being couched, to establish rape in court is actually a very serious business. And so anybody who is alleging rape must be prepared, must have sufficient, sufficient evidences to establish rape in court.
Another question comes to mind, Pelumi. How do you go about this? You said it's very serious business establishing rape in court. How do you go about this when you look at the perspective we have today about this case, that this has happened for over 20 years? You're saying evidence is not just enough. So if the person in question says, okay, this person was privy to this, it's not just enough. There has to be the medical examination. But this has happened long ago. How do you do it?
Now, you see, this will call to question our criminal prosecution system in Nigeria. Do not forget that the business of criminal prosecution is solely for the state. Even if the affected victim or the alleged victim complains and take up issue, it is the state, through the Nigerian police, that has a duty to investigate this matter thoroughly and prosecute. Now, when the Nigerian police is to investigate a rape allegation, there are certain ingredients the Nigerian police must establish before prosecution can commence. Now, you see, the legal team that is working with the victim is in custody of certain facts and records that might not be open now. Until the matter is in court, you do not know what are the sufficient evidences that the victim has to challenge the accused person in court. But you see, I am suspecting that this allegation, being a very serious one, might open a new chapter into our legal jurisprudence. This is because, you see, the business of, there's something we call Causation Act in criminal transaction. The business of proving a particular event in court is solely for the prosecution, and the prosecution will be relying so much on corroborative evidence, such as account of eyewitness. Now, the victim, we do not know if the victim in all of the rape scenario has any account of any witness who can account or who can give statement that this actually transpired. But when you say opening a new chapter in our criminal prosecution system, if you look at the stories from the victim of the alleged rape, we have instances whereby she said there was a particular time that herself and her brother went to meet the accused person and challenged the accused person, and we learned that the accused person apologized. We can't verify all this fact until we get to court. Now, you see, in the process of all of this transaction, the court will be able to corroborate all of these evidences if the legal team working with the victim is preparing all the necessary materials to support the police prosecution. So we cannot say right now that these are the available evidences. And also, do not forget that the team working with the victim also, they are not relying solely on the accusation from the victim. They are also giving clarion call to people who have been affected, who have been victims of this
Mr. Pelumi,
in the past.
We will come back to discuss some more, but we have to go on a quick break. I'll be right back. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. Before we went to that break, we're talking to lawyer and human rights activist Pelumi Olajengbesi, and we're talking about, the definition and technicalities behind rape. Before we went on that break, you were trying to explain the concept. Can you just continue with what you were explaining as we come to you and ask more questions, sir?
Yeah, hello, I'm with you.
Great. So continue with your explanation before we went on break. Continue with that explanation.
Also, like I was saying, a lot of people are accused of rape. Matters are taken up by the Nigerian police. But from our experience, we've noticed that some of these persons end up being convicted for sexual assault, sexual harassment, and related offenses. This is simply because the business of establishing rape in court is actually a huge tax. And we must also be mindful of the fact that it is not the accused or, the victim's family or lawyers that take up this matter. It is the Nigerian police. So it calls to question the objectivity of the Nigerian police. Take, for instance, looking at the wanton publicity this matter has generated. The Nigerian police ordinarily, within the ambit of the law, should have delved into this matter by inviting the parties and commence immediately serious investigation. But now you see the disposition of the Nigerian police is not really impressive. So it goes to show that our criminal investigation system is very, very low and it must be improved.
Well, let me ask you, because some of the arguments put forward by those who are in solidarity with the alleged culprit here is that this alleged rape took place many years ago. According to the laws of the land in Nigeria, is there a time limit to seek redress?
Whenever we have anything that has to do with crime in Nigeria, there's no time limit, there's no limitation of time to commence an action against an accused person. Because there's a saying in law that time does not run against the state. The business of prosecuting criminal in the criminal process is solely for the state. And there's no way time can run against the state. So if this offense, yes, it is reasonable that trial for rape should commence at a reasonable point in time so that the evidences will not be damaged, evidences will not be destroyed. But however, at any point in time when allegation of rape is established and there are sufficient evidences, do not forget that even when the Nigerian police commence investigation, the prosecution will not start immediately. The Nigerian police must be very sure that there's a course of action and there's a tribal matter in court before prosecution can commence. So the Nigerian police have a duty to investigate that. However, there's no time limit. Even after 100 years, if you have sufficient evidence to challenge a particular matter in court, so be it. If you have evidence, if you have medical examination that is sufficient, or you have corroborative evidence that can assist your case in court, then you can come up with your matter anytime. And it is important for us to encourage people who are victims of such grievous act to come out and speak out. Because you must understand one thing, that the functionality of our society is planted both on morality and law. And of course, morality in terms of advocacy goes a long way to call to action people who have duty to ensure that our laws are respected, our laws are efficient, and our laws are designed in a manner to make sure that the nation works better. I think at a time like this, and with such a development, the Nigerian government and the Nigerian police force must begin to devise scientific method to investigate a rape in Nigeria. If you look at a lot of cases that has been decided in the past, in the case of Okafor against the state, it was discovered that a medical evidences was pleaded in court. However, the judge of the Supreme Court resolved that even though this medical evidence indicates that there was sexual intercourse, that the medical evidence was not sufficient to say the particular party who was involved in the sexual intercourse. This is a serious issue. And also from the dimension of this matter, you understand that though our law says that a person cannot be said to have consented to sexual intercourse at the age of 14, but sufficiently the age of majority in Nigeria is even 18. That goes to show that such a law, even and if process, can be challenged in court, depending on who is involved and depending on how prepared the Nigerian police is.
Mr. Olajengbesi, I just want to, get some technicalities right. Once it happens, the first thing you should do is to report to the police. The police follows you for an examination, a medical examination. In a case where once this case happened, there was no medical examination possible, there was no record of medical examination, it was just pleas and apologies across board, what do you then do? You cited the case of Okafor. So medical examination most times might not even be enough, because in the case of Okafor, the medical examination was not sufficient. What's the role of DNA and forensic programming in our laws today? Because that's another big question. Because cases like this, you need DNA, you need forensic programming to be able to ascertain that, okay, this did happen.
If you have a DNA report and forensic examination. There's a procedure in court through which you can lay foundation and establish all this and present and tender it as an evidence. Now, if a person is a victim of rape, the first thing the person should do is to probably contact the police or contact other organizations who have interest in taking up causes that has to do with rape. And also, if you can approach the police, another thing again is that we must also understand that it is the duty of the Nigerian police to take up such matter when such information is within their knowledge. Now, if a particular person is, if there's a rape case and the Nigerian police is investigating, it is not necessarily about medical report alone or eyewitness account. Do not forget that in the chain of causation, there are certain elements because, you know, in the establishment of crime, we talk about actus reus and mens rea. And when these come together to establish a particular crime, let me give you an example. If, for instance, I'm a victim of rape, and I told my elder brother, and my elder brother meets the person who actually violated me, and the person apologized and promised that such will not happen again. And if you have such an apology in record, I mean, there's a confessional statement indirectly, and you can establish that in court. So you do not know the events that has taken place even after the allegation has been established. So that is what we call chain of causation in criminal trial.
Well, earlier, you did allude to the fact that it seems abnormal for the Nigerian police not to have stepped into this matter to invite both parties. Well, we don't know if they have, but let me ask you, what is the rate of conviction for rape cases in Nigeria? And do the laws of rape apply across all jurisdictions, the punishment in the country?
Yes, today, as of 2015, there's a law that has been passed by the National Assembly. We call the law of Violation of Persons Prohibition Act. This law has put in place life imprisonment for people who are guilty of the crime of rape. And also, but before the advent of this law, and this law is very important because some section of the law has also, some section of the law have vitiated the criminal code and the penal code. But if you look at in the southern part of the country, when you commit rape, it is 14 years imprisonment. In the northern part of the country, when you commit rape, it is life imprisonment with caning and with fine. But when you go to Lagos, Lagos has a peculiar law that takes care of, violation of all of this. So the punishment for law actually is dependent on the jurisdiction, the particular state, and the law that is prevalent in that state. But the major law that the Nigerian people should rely on, that should be, the source of direction for us, is the law that has been enacted by the National Assembly. Ordinarily, every state of the Federation by now should have domesticated the law, because the law is so powerful, the law has expanded the concept of rape such that even without sex, you can actually establish rape. If you look at the Section 1 of the Violation of Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, the Section 1 goes to show that even when there is penetration in a person's mouth or there is penetration in any part of the person's body, even when there is penetration, but the penetration is not with the use of the man's reproductive organ, it can also amount to rape. So if I use my hand to penetrate the labia muscular of the woman, it means that rape has been committed. Or if I use any instrument that is not part of the woman's body, as the case may be. So when you look at this law, the law has said expressly that the commission of rape is life imprisonment. However, there's what we call gang rape. Gang rape is a situation whereby 20, 10, 3, 4 people commit a particular rape together. Each of these persons will be entitled to 20 years imprisonment. We also have statutory rape. Statutory rape is having sex or, having a carnal knowledge of a person that is below the age of 14. So all of this, the nature of the offense and what has been established in court will determine the punishment. But if you commit the crime of rape in Abuja, then you are going to be, certainly life imprisonment.
The other question I asked you was the rate of conviction. What is the rate of conviction in Nigeria for rape?
Well, the rate of conviction in Nigeria is not impressive. If you look at the statistics compared to statistics of allegation and conviction, is actually a big deal. And you say thing the Nigerian people should understand is that the law, yes, criminal procedure, criminal prosecution, it is proved beyond reasonable doubt. But our laws in decided cases, Lord Denny and even Lord Rosevivos of the Supreme Court has said that the law is proved beyond reasonable doubt in criminal trial, but not proved beyond all shadow of doubt. Now, the challenge of establishing rape cases in court is actually a huge task. And do not forget that the Nigerian police is usually not encouraged to take up these matters because some of these persons may not be passionate enough in driving the matter to a logical conclusion. So the extent and the level of conviction is really, really poor in the country. And let me quickly say this. We are talking about this today because someone who is highly influential, someone who is highly placed is affected. But every day in all spheres of our life, a lot of people are victims of rape. And the painful experience is that rape is usually committed by people who are in position of influence, who have influence above people who are their victims. It's not happening in churches alone. It's happening in politics. It's happening in the banking sector. It's happening in areas where people use undue influence. A lot of musicians, stars who have influence all over the place mess up with people, and the law is not catching up with them.
All right. I'd like to say a very big thank you to you. We still have lots and lots of questions to ask, but maybe definitely we'll bring you here some other time to be able to talk about these issues. But as we go, trial time is another question that comes to mind. What's the span of trial? We have cases that span 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Trial times can be very frustrating. What's your take on this?
Trial time is dependent on the nature of evidence available before the court. Now, if you have an allegation of rape and there's a prima facie evidence against the accused person, I mean, within a month, 2 months, 3 months, it can be resolved. But in a situation, the challenge is not trial time. The challenge is actually the process of investigating the crime of rape and what are the available evidences. And you see, talking about justice, justice is not to the victim alone. And justice also to the accused person.
Unfortunately, we have to go. You see, we are so much out of time. Thank you so much for your input on that case. Thank you for coming on the Morning Show.